Welcome to the Her Story Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Diversity Connector. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Morning, everyone. My name is Jill, and I live in Melbourne, Victoria, the same hometown as Gertrude. Thanks, Gertrude, for inviting me to your show. And I was born in Kuching, Sarawak, Malaysia, and I came to Melbourne in July 1998. I started my university in Melbourne Uni, third year architecture degree, Bachelor of Planning and Design. After I completed my third year of architecture, I was supposed to do a year out, but because of the Asian economic crisis, I managed to liaise with the uni to have it reduced to 6 months, and then I proceeded with my master's program in planning and design, specializing in urban design. And because I was still an international student upon graduation from my master's in RMIT, I was offered a few choices in order to stay in Australia. It's either through the Victoria Government State Nomination Program, which is a 5 years program where I have to leave Melbourne, and I was offered a few choices, one in Mount Gambier in South Australia and the others in Albury-Wodonga City Council. But for some reason, the heart did not seem to align, and universe did not seem to match. I decided to embark on a cookery program with William Angus, and I managed to complete my Certificate 3 in commercial cookery after 1 year in William Angus. And as they said, the rest is history from then on. So I finished my after. When I was doing cookery, I was offered a lot of hospitality roles, and I've met a lot of wonderful, famous chefs. And along the way, I was still practicing as a strategic urban planner with a few projects around Melbourne CBD, Bendigo, Geelong, Point Cook, among all the projects that I did. But the hospital offered me a permanent position, and that's where I stayed for almost 2 decades. And COVID hit everyone very hard, not just the general people in the hospital industry. And Melbourne being the most locked down city in the world, we have to work almost double the workload, and patients does not seem to decrease. In fact, it multiplied in a way that we cannot imagine. It was hard. I worked throughout COVID, and at that time, you don't really realize what burnt out really means, but it's a fact that we all know, and it is. Sadly, in August, I decided that it's not another career that I want to continue. For retirement, I think COVID really changed a lot of people's mindset in terms of what they want and how to pursue what they want. And the funny thing is, shortly before COVID, I was actually introduced to the world of urban planning, and I've met a lot of urban sketches. And in fact, I've sketched more than 11 chapters around the world, and I hope to sketch with as many people around the world. Um, through the world of urban planning, you'll see the world one moment at a time.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Wonderful to meet you, Jill.
Oh,
So,
thank
yeah,
you.
the Diversity Connector is trying to hear about the experiences of people from all over the world, living here in Australia. What was your first impression of Australia when you came? What were the major differences, the culture shock? Tell us about that.
So I came to Melbourne in July 1998. It was a cold winter day, and having lived in the capital of Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, for the last 2.5 years while studying my diploma in architecture, everything seems really tiny in comparison. I think it's because Melbourne is very wide, and the buildings are not as compact as being in Asia. And I really embrace the culture being so multinational in Melbourne. So it's not really much a culture shock for me. In fact, I think the first time I experienced culture shock was through a university exchange program to China in 2000. And
Mm,
I thought I, having descended from the Chinese, like my grandfather was born in China, my
yes,
grandmother born in Malaysia, so I'm third generation Malaysian. I find the Chinese culture very foreign to me, even though I am Chinese. I'm not sure, does that make sense at all?
that's
I
interesting.
Yeah, like before I left Malaysia to come to Australia, I don't feel much different apart from being proud to be a Chinese as a race. But because of the university program, I was able to go on an exchange program in 2000, and a lot of Chinese cultures are very foreign to what my ancestors have practiced that over the years that I was growing up in
Okay.
Malaysia.
So the culture was completely different in Malaysia
Yes,
as opposed to mainland China.
that's correct. Yes.
Wow,
Um, so,
that's fascinating.
so for example, like I think we identify itself Chinese, and we have personal space. We respect each other's personal space. We
Hmm.
are so, for example, if you queue in an ATM machine trying to withdraw money, you give each other space so you don't invade their privacy when they're trying to enter their PIN number. But I think personal space is not really a concern in China, and it was one of the first culture shock that I experienced being in my ancestors' land.
Wow, that is so fascinating. It's interesting that you managed to go back and actually, I guess, go back to your roots and see
Yes,
what mainland China was really
yes,
like. That is fascinating. Now, you've been in Australia for a while now.
yep.
Did you come with family? Did you come alone?
I came
Um,
back. I came all by myself. Yes.
and how did that feel? How much support did you get? You're a young woman coming to a foreign country by yourself. Did you get a lot of support from the university?
Yes, UC actually is very embracing of people from overseas, and we assimilate really well in among our peers and in the same faculty, because I think probably it makes it easier. We speak the same language, like the architecture language, but when we try to blend in into the other faculties, I have questions from other faculty student like, which private school do you go to? And I was like, I've never been to a private school in my whole entire life. And the second question was, how did you get to Melbourne Uni if you are not from a private school? So
Yes.
this is really strange because I always believed that you get to university on your own merit. You don't need to rely what your parents do before, like if they were university graduates before or not. Yeah, so that was very strange for me, but apparently I was told in Melbourne, people look at which private school you went, and in Sydney, people look at which suburb you live. Yes, and it was funny because in around 1999 or 2000, I was walking from my apartment in Carlton, and I was stopped by a reporter. I didn't know that they were the age reporter at that time. I thought it was just a casual chat because they said Carlton was voted the poorest suburb in Melbourne because of the number of population that do not work, meaning students.
Wow.
Yes, and because students do not work, they do not contribute to the economy demographics, and
Yes.
and because of that, they were voted the poorest suburb, but in terms of facts, but not really factual. And they interviewed me, and I was interviewed by the age, and I was uh, asked if I was happy to have a photo taken. I was like, sure. I'm just a student going to university, what.
Yes.
And they put me in the car and they drove me to South Carlton, and because they want the area to look a bit dilapidated, and I was shocked when they asked me to stand on top of rubbish bins. So I
What?
thought, yes, just to show that we are poor students. So we live
Oh
like
my goodness.
we were featured like I was photographed in front of the bins. Yeah, they were
Yeah.
clean bins, but it's just the illusion.
Cool.
So
Wow.
I just thought, okay, all right, finish the story. And the next day, it was like everyone was staring at me so weirdly when I was entering the faculty, and I was like, "What's wrong? Is there something on my face or something?" And I saw the article. It was a big front page of the
Oh my God.
newspaper article, and it was so embarrassed. And I was like, "My God, I didn't know that like it's going to be featured like in a page of a newspaper." And
Wow.
yes, it was funny because yeah, that's I was
What
like
an experience.
it was a funny experience because like if you just you wouldn't have thought like a thing like walking to university and someone stop you for a question, you answer the question, and then they say, can I have a photo, and you drive to another location for a photo shoot, and next thing it was on the papers.
Oh, it was just an innocent.
I know
Oh,
encounter.
oh
I
my
I I
goodness.
I have that newspaper and I gave it to my family because I find it such an embarrassment. You still can get the paper if you go to the Edge and request
It's
request the article from past editions.
okay. That was a very, very strange experience. And this is normally what happens when people are trying to paint an illusion or a picture or a narrative that's
Yes,
not really true.
that's right. And at that time, I was volunteering with Urala. I was just in front of our place, and it was funny. They were comparing Carlton, and I think it was Brighton, where you live, and said, I know this woman. She just lived next near me, or something like that. It was so funny connection. The 6 degrees of separation thing.
Operation,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh
So
my God. Well, what would you say have been the highlights of your stay in Australia?
um, so I would say after my trip to China, I met a lot of Australian friends, like which I wouldn't have the chance to have. I didn't spend a lot of time with Australian people, as in Caucasians, until I
Right.
went to China because we were in a foreign land and we were representing Melbourne Uni. So I met a lot of lifelong Aussies, they call it, through that trip to China. And I went to a wedding with one of the friends that we met in China, and the family asked him, so how did you meet Jill? And he said, I met her in China. But it's
Interesting.
even though we were both studying at Melbourne Uni at the same time.
Yeah.
Yes.
The connection had to be made in China of all places.
Yes, that's correct. And after that trip, we were offered to do some video shoots to
Mm-hmm.
represent Melbourne Uni, and I was flown by ABC. And for some reason, I think because I was finishing my first year university, the ABC network said they have posted my clip to my residence, but I've never received the clip of my photo shoot. Looks like I spent a whole day filming that shoot, but I don't have a copy of that. And then a few years later, my friend from Indonesia contacted me and said, "Hey, Jill, I saw your film in Melbourne Uni. They were interviewing you." And I was like, "Oh, I wish I have my hands on that clip." Yeah,
So
maybe
you
you can try to find the clip for me. It was filmed by ABC Network. And
right.
out of the five, I was the only one chosen to feature in that documentary.
Oh my gosh. But you never got to see it. That's very unfortunate.
Yes. So I was
Very
interviewed,
unfortunate.
and they said, "Oh, don't worry, the filming will only take 1 hour," but it actually being ended up being the whole
Whole
day.
day.
I spent the whole day filming in the university campus.
That's so crazy. And so have you experienced any, negative experiences with discrimination in any form?
Um, well, it's funny how I see the world. Like being Malaysian Chinese, right? We are not really considered Malaysian. Like we are still classified as Chinese race, even though I was born in Malaysia. And
Okay.
I think, and that probably shaped a lot of my parents' generation to make sure that their children have definitely have a chance to grow overseas. So
Yes.
I left Malaysia when I was 15 after my year 10 equivalent exam. So in Malaysia,
Okay.
that we have this education system. If you are smart, you go to science because they want
Right.
all the smart people to be doctors, yeah, or
Yeah.
lawyers, or accountants, or
Mhm.
all this classification of a profession that is respectable. And I knew
Right.
that being a doctor is not my calling, but my principal refused to give up, and so we were forced to do. So pure science means physics, chemistry, biology, right? I don't
Yes.
get me wrong, I love biology, just not practicing as a doctor because I do not like blood. Like,
Not many of us do.
yeah,
Yes.
and I was funny because like everyone kind of expected me to be in medicine, but I was like, it's not my calling. And
Yeah.
after architecture, I was considering, oh, architecture is not really making survival it easy, because we will spend like 12 to 14 hours on a project, and we will submit a tender, and if we don't win the tender, we don't get nothing. So it's basically a
Yes.
career that you do for love, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I'm doing projects after projects, where is the money coming in? You
Mm.
still need to pay the bills. and
Yeah.
and that's where the
Waiting.
hospital come in, and because hospital run 24/7, and there's always work.
Yes. Yeah, that makes logical sense.
Yes, and
Transition to hospital
yes, that's
work.
correct. Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So, what are your aspirations for the future? Where do you
uh,
see yourself 2 years from now?
I'm not sure, because when I was 16, I probably I would like to be a famous architect and then design a lot of fantastic buildings around the world. That probably happen in an ideal world, yeah. But
Yes.
and then you have to be idealistic and say, if it's not paying the bills, you're not going to get a mortgage. If you're not going to get a mortgage, you'll be continue renting, and well, I wanted to own a home. We bought a place in 2005. I was very happy that I was able to accumulate debt very early on, because
Yes.
it makes the mortgage less as we're nearing the end of the payment. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you eventually own a home. So I would say, I think the 100-year COVID thing, yeah, what they say is a once in a lifetime thing,
Mm,
changed my perception that you should live life to the fullest. You know, you don't have any expectation, and you will be blessed with whatever surprise come your way.
that's so true. It is a short life. COVID did wake us up to a lot of
Yes.
things. So, do you still have family back home? What are the circumstances there?
Yeah, my mom and dad still live back in Kuching. I have
Mm-hmm.
a brother in Kuching as well. After my master's, they were considering moving here. My dad loved the food and culture in Melbourne, but he doesn't like the weather.
The
Whereas
weather.
I love the weather, so you know I enjoy the cold after living in a hot and humid
Got,
climate weather for the first 19 years of my life, you know? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, no, you're like me. I was living in Wellington, New Zealand, and
Yeah.
Melbourne just feels like a bigger version of Wellington.
Yes.
I love the weather here. It's just beautiful. It's not too
Yes.
hot,
Yeah.
not too cold. Yeah.
I
Oh,
was in I was in Wellington in April after Auckland. So because I was in Auckland for the Urban Sketcher Symposium.
okay.
Yeah, that's an annual event.
Right.
And from Auckland we drove down to Wellington.
Yeah, Wellington's a beautiful city.
Yes, it is.
A beautiful city, and a lot of people who come to that part of the world and don't see Wellington just don't know what they're missing out on.
Yes.
Yeah.
I first flew past Wellington to attend my cousin's graduation in Otago. That was
Okay.
in December 1998, and I wasn't planning to go at all because the airfare was so exorbitant. Like flying
Mhm.
to Dunedin is the same price as flying back to Malaysia.
Yes.
And my cousin, his parents, so my uncles and my auntie, was not able to fly to New Zealand, so I was the only representative of the family being there, and he sponsored the remaining part of the trip. So I made my way to Auckland, and he sponsored the trip from Auckland to Dunedin. So I flew Melbourne, Auckland, Christchurch, Dunedin, and then on the way back I flew Dunedin, Wellington, Melbourne, or Auckland, Melbourne.
Fantastic. Well, listen, it's been such a pleasure connecting with you today,
Oh, thank
learning
you
about
very much.
being here in this part of the world. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person, hopefully very, very soon.
Oh,
We're
thank
in the
you.
so we need to catch up for a coffee. Thank you
Definitely.
so much.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody who's tuned in today. The Diversity Connector is connecting people from all over the world, sharing their experiences about living and working here in Australia. So tune in again tomorrow when I interview another amazing guest. In the meantime, have a fantastic day, morning, or evening, wherever you are in the world, and bye for now. Thanks again, Jill.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make in the world when you use your voice. I'm Gertrude Mache, and it's been an honor to share this space with you, where voices from all walks of life come together to weave a rich tapestry of diverse perspectives. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast to help us share these stories with more listeners. Follow us on social media by looking for the Her Story Circle podcast for more updates. And join us tomorrow for another episode filled with courage, resilience, and empowerment. Remember, your story matters, and together we're building a stronger, more inclusive world. Until next time, keep making her story. Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle